With Stewart-Haas Racing leaving NASCAR at the end of the season, a lot of teams will be looking to purchase their charters to expand their teams. However, NASCAR is preparing to limit the number of charters per team to 3. As it stands, Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports are the only teams who have 4 charters. NASCAR driver and team owner Denny Hamlin thinks that this gives a disadvantage to teams like 23XI Racing. There have been some rumors that NASCAR will be limiting the team size to 3 charters. However, JGR and HMS are expected to be grandfathered in, meaning they would be the only teams with 4 charters on the grid. NASCAR driver and team owner Denny Hamlin thinks this would not be fair for the rest of the teams. "I think this is part of a grander plan from Jim France and what he wants. The problem is you've already got 4 car teams," Hamlin said on his Actions Detrimental podcast. "So if you limit it to 3 in the future, it will always be an advantage to then have 4. Hamlin followed up on his thoughts. An extra car means more data, and data is king in modern NASCAR, if you know what to do with it anyway. It's more data points. Stewart-Haas is in a little different situation. It's just different. It's different. They were really good for a while and then it tailed off. Again, what's going to happen then is if you cap it at 3 and say, that's all you can do. 23XI, you can only be 3 for the rest of your lives. I'm going to say, okay, how am I going to beat Gibbs and Hendrick then? I mean, it'll be tough, and especially if they're trying to put some sort of salary cap or something into this thing. It's always going, you're going to have more resources. The numbers are just going to keep going up. The more you have, the more you have. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that for sure, but because we deem it necessary to compete against them, is we need to have more data points," he explained. "So we pay a fee to Gibbs Racing every year to have access to those meetings and look at their data. We pay a big fee for it." Denny Hamlin was adamant about his point. Hendrick and Gibbs will have an inherent advantage. "The problem with that is the point of entry into the sport will be extremely hard," Hamlin said, "because we, having an alliance with Gibbs Racing, made it easier for us to come in. If I had to build all the infrastructure which Gibbs Racing has, because I think they manufacture about, this is a very rough number, like 200 parts and pieces, that help put that car together that we cannot manufacture, because we don't have the equipment to manufacture it. We need them to provide that to us. It's all about the data. More of it means you can draw more conclusions and come to the solution, which is finding more speed. So the more opportunities they have, the more data points. The more drivers have teammates that they can bounce each other information off of and setups off of. They're going to have an advantage. So grandfathering them in, I guess, may be a way to say thank you for all that they've done to build our sport up. I mean, I'm just thinking hypothetically. Maybe that's the reason for it. But it certainly makes it difficult to compete, you know. They will always have an advantage. Doesn't mean we can't go out and beat them on any given week." Denny Hamlin has a very good relationship with Gibbs and his team. Hamlin has piloted the number 11 car for JGR since he joined NASCAR in 2006. In 2020, Hamlin decided to partner with NBA legend Michael Jordan to start a new team. The team was called 23XI Racing. The number 23 was Michael Jordan's jersey number during his NBA career with the Chicago Bulls, and the number 11 is Denny Hamlin's car number. Despite starting a new team, Hamlin decided to continue racing for Gibbs Racing as a show of loyalty. However, Hamlin's relationship with Gibbs Racing has some other perks as well. Speaking of perks, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for our channel. We'll make sure you get the latest news on NASCAR. You won't regret it. As Denny mentioned, 23XI has come into an agreement with Gibbs Racing to sit in on their meetings. In a sport like NASCAR, data is very important. A minor setup change or change in driving style could make all the difference on the track. These changes cannot be made without proper research and data to back up the results. Hence, teams with 4 charters, such as Hendrick Motorsports and Gibbs Racing, will always have an advantage over the rest of the teams. If NASCAR decides to limit teams to 3 charters excluding JGR and HMS, there's no doubt that the rest of the field will find it incredibly challenging to catch up. But this regulation change is still under discussion. With SHR selling all of their charters, 23XI will definitely be behind them to purchase a charter. There have been several indications that 23XI is looking to expand. They made their debut in 2021 with just 1 charter, but the very next season, they expanded to 2 charters with the number 45 car. Last year and this year, the team has run a few select races with a 3rd non-charter car as well. With another car on the grid, they could start closing in on Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports. 23XI Racing has only been able to find so much success due to its partnership with Gibbs Racing. Without JGR, the team would most likely struggle in the sport. Hence, we could see other teams suffer if NASCAR does decide to limit the rest of the teams to 3 charters. Front Row Motorsports is another team that has been looking to expand. FRM General Manager Jerry Freese said the Bob Jenkins-owned outfit is exploring the idea of adding a team. I think we're always looking to expand, to be honest with you, and I think this year there's a lot of chatter about that, Freese said. Bob has this desire to be 3 cars. We were at one time, and I think he had a lot of regret that we sold the one charter we had. The truth is, we are kind of space challenged where we're at with what we're doing today, Freese said. We could make it work with 3 cup teams out of our shop, but we'd have to find a new home for the truck team. So I think for us to expand, we've got to look at building options. Last week, the team announced that they had just purchased a 3rd charter for the 2025 season. The news broke just the day after Stewart-Haas Racing announced their departure. If NASCAR decides to limit the charters per team to 3, FRM may not be allowed to purchase more charters than this. In terms of drivers, FRM has not yet decided who will pilot the 3rd car, but there's no shortage of drivers in NASCAR. All 4 of the SHR drivers will be available for the 2025 season, so there's a strong possibility that one of these drivers could head to FRM next year. We can expect 2311 Racing to purchase a 3rd charter as well for the next season. SHR's charters are expected to sell for around $20 to $30 million, but 2311 has no shortage of resources, considering that the team is co-owned by multi-billionaire Michael Jordan. But either way, none of the teams may get to have 4 cars on the grid except for Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports. But why them? Both JGR and HMS have been in NASCAR for a long time. Each of the teams has played its part in building a proud history in the sport. There's no doubt that they are to thank for the sport's growing popularity over the years. So, to thank them for their part in growing the sport, NASCAR will most probably allow them to retain the 4 charters. But is this fair? As mentioned above, giving only 2 teams, which are already at the top of the grid, the permission to run 4 cars would give them an advantage in collecting more data than the rest of the grid. Hence, they'll be able to unlock more performances in their cars. In an attempt to catch up, we could see other teams looking for a similar deal to the one 2311 Racing has with Joe Gibbs Racing. But even still, JGR and HMS will not reveal all their findings to the rest of the grid. Besides, the data will be almost worthless to teams who are not running with the same manufacturers. A solution to this problem will be to restrict Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports as well. At the end of the day, NASCAR wants to bring this regulation change into effect to make the series more affordable for all teams and even the playing ground. How will the playing ground be even if the 2 teams will always have an advantage? NASCAR could find another way to thank JGR and HMS for their contribution to the sport. For example, in F1, the sport pays a sum of money to Ferrari to participate in the sport every year. A similar deal could be formed with JGR and Hendrick Motorsport. Do you think it's a good idea to impose a 3-charter limitation on all the teams except Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports? Post your thoughts in the comment section below.